One. Welcome, fam, to the week 4 recap of the FFFL 2024 season. And I have a special co-host right now. It is simply Sam, the number one team in our league for right now in this moment. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Before we got on there, you were sharing your cocktail that you had.
Yeah.
Do you mind sharing that with everybody else? Because it sounded so good.
Yeah. So I found this on the internet. It's like a play off of a drink called like a Western Oasis. This guy called it a Northern Oasis. So it's bourbon, pineapple juice, Aperol, and lime. And so I have the recipe if anybody wants it. I can send it to you guys, but it's pretty good. It's refreshing. It's not too, you know, powering, like hits you in the face. So nice and refreshing for this evening.
I like that because at first I thought it was a beer because it kind of has a little bit
It
of
does
head
look
on
like
it.
a beer. The Aperol is like that red color. It gives it kind of like a beer look, but
Yeah, so that makes sense. But now I'm going to look for this Aperol thing
Aperol spritzes they were big for a while. They're a big summer drink. It's
back
like
in
just
the 1900s, like
oh,
something
like
like
right
that.
now, people love Aperol spritzes.
Okay,
People think they're fancy. I don't know. Haley
got
loves them.
it. People love like sarsaparilla,
Yeah,
and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So,
It's same thing.
well, appreciate you being on and having a cocktail. I think we got to be like Club Shay Shay and always have a cocktail with us while we do our little thing. So I appreciate it. Mine's never been a cocktail. Everybody's ginger beer. I just like ginger beer, and it's a good probiotic. I think it's
God help
good for your gut.
for that guy.
Yeah, and tasty. I like it. Well, Sam, are you ready to dive into our
Let's do
stuff
it.
here?
Let's get in it.
Yeah, I mean, this week is a special week for everybody because they get like the top two teams in our league actually, so actual experts,
Yeah,
talking about this kind of stuff.
two champions, top of the league. I mean, don't want to toot our own horns here, but I mean,
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You know what I know. I know. And we got some big stuff coming up this week. I mean, it's starting to shape out. So really interesting. But this is the week 4 recap. As you all know, we'll go through this past week's matchups, which we had some good ones and some important stuff that happened even on Monday night. So I love it when it comes down to that. Then we'll have a guest appearance from Dr. Sam. He'll come and do that injury report. Afterwards, we'll see some waiver wire what to do's because this is the first week of buys. So bye week starts this week with a couple important teams, a few important teams that are on bye this week, especially. Then we'll hit Trade Central, hit up with some Javante or Godwin. Hey, maybe Javante may have done a little bit better this week. Not by much, but
no,
it is a step in the right direction. Then we get
it's
to
a long season.
yes, then we get to comment on the week and then wrap up with the week 5 matchup. So let's rock and roll with that very first one of the ass whooping of the week. And I found this out, Dr. Sam. I'm going to split us. Boom. This was cool and I figured it out last week. So we're going to split up on the screen like this. But the ass whooping of the week. So just so everybody's aware, I've kind of made some parameters around this because I really hadn't had parameters before, Sam. I didn't really, but now I'm making it if it's 30 points or more, then I'm considering that an ass whooping because
That seems
we
fair.
kind of like average that. It's like 15-ish points as like a player, I would kind of say. Now we have 8 players, so if you got 15 points out of each player, you would then be around 120 points, which is a good score on a week and a little bit ahead. So that's where I'm kind of saying if you beat somebody by 30 or more, you kind of beat them by 2 players or more, and that's a big deal. This time it was by 60 points, though. Kyle whooped up on Allison. Anything that you saw, well, we probably know why, but anything you want to throw out there as to why you think it happened?
I mean, I even posted in the chat yesterday watching the Lions Seahawks game. I mean, Kenneth Walker, like he
Oh,
doesn't like he skipped a beat. Like that dude is finding holes like you see in college where they just delay and then he just takes off against like grown ass men.
yeah.
And then grown ass men is freaking Derrick Henry, right? So I mean, it's the same thing. Like again, when I won the league in the first year, you had talked about like the three-headed monster, my running backs. Like
Yep.
he has a two-headed monster, and then you stick on like a number one wide receiver and Justin Jefferson on there, and like the Vikings are doing really well this year, so
Yep.
it's one of those like that team like if they're hot, like they're gonna be putting up just numbers every week.
And the scary part to me is the Cowboys haven't started to roll at all. And
Yeah,
if they start to roll, then now you got Dak even going off. And so that could be Kyle has a fairly scary team. I agree with you. And I love Kenneth Walker. I just like the way he runs. He runs with a band, and like you said, sometimes it wasn't even a hole. Sometimes he would just hit the edge.
yeah.
Like you saw a couple where he just beating them on the edge, and Detroit was the number one defense against the run before last night, and so you didn't see it coming. Especially, and kudos to him for playing him because that's a Monday night game. You
Oh
don't know
yeah.
how he's going to be after the injury. He's going up against number one defense. You don't know if he's going to split time, and so he stuck it with it and decided to play him and roll with it, and it paid off for him. And on Allison's side, Carson Steele, obviously not a steal. He is probably he's going to the bench. He fumbled, and they just said, "All right, peace out, Carson. We
Yeah.
got somebody else here to do your job." But I feel bad for it because Neighbors, best player on her team, he might be out this week. Maybe Dr. Sam will let us know. He's got extra time, so that's helpful. But even
Yeah.
Travis Etienne then gets hurt in the midst of that game, and he goes out for like a quarter or more. And so she kind of is getting hit with some of this. Anything that she could have done differently, or that you may have seen that would have been different.
I mean, I don't really know who exactly she's got on her bench, but I mean, you kind of look at like Brock Purdy's score and they win like 30-13. You're kind of like, okay, you only got 13 points. So, you're hoping for against New England, you're hoping for like a bigger game there. I mean, I think Dalton Kincaid is like a solid tight end. He's going to continue to get you points. He's basically like wide receiver number two, kind of split time in there. And I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
was very hesitant about Malik Neighbors in the beginning of the season because, like, my rule is like try not to draft somebody that's on a bad team because it's like
Yep,
a team. But I mean, he's a stud, and so I mean, he's
amazing.
doing great. So I mean, I think there's some bones there. And I don't know who exactly she's got on her bench, but I mean, might be room for trying to mix some stuff up, make a trade, get lucky in the waiver wire, pick somebody up. I mean, she should have priority, so she'll be able to grab somebody off the waiver wire and kind of see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I agree. Malik is having me question if I should have taken him over Marvin Harrison Jr. in my dynasty league. So he's that good of a player, and
Yeah.
kudos to him. The only other thing I'll say is she's always going to have to battle between if she plays Sam Darnold or she plays Brock Purdy, and that's just matchup dependent. It's not a bad spot to be in for Allison. And in all
Right.
honesty, there's weeks you're going to kick yourself and feel like, oh, I should have gone the other way, but you got two solid guys that you're going to play the matchup there. So, but
Yeah. I mean,
Kyle,
I'm making that pick. Brock Purdy over Sam Darnold, like Brock Purdy versus New England versus Sam Darnold versus the Packers. Like, I'm picking
yep,
Brock Purdy.
yep,
Like, 10 out of 10 times, getting Kittle and Debo back. Like, I'm taking him 10 out of 10 times.
I agree, and that's why I'm kind of saying like sometimes it's not going to work out like you thought, but you're in a good spot. But Kyle, kudos to you, high score of the week. Boop boop boop. I'm gonna have a little toast to you for that one.
Is that our fourth new highest
Yep,
score of the week?
every single week, and I was bummed out because I thought Kenneth Walker made sure I didn't get it this
Yeah, I was
week because
right
I
there too.
I know you were
And
battling
the
me for
offense just
that.
blew it, but yeah.
I know. We were all right there because then I thought Sam had it, then all of a sudden Kenneth Walker does what he does. I didn't even have Kyle into consideration. And then Ken Walker with
Pulled it
34
off.
friggin' points. Lordy.
Yeah.
So nice job. Nice job, Kyle. Tough team to beat right there. All right, next up, another ass whooping of the week. This time it wasn't by as much, but it was by 35 plus points. And it was Casey whooping up on EJ. Anything to take away from this matchup from either team?
I mean, Jaden Daniels really kind of coming into form here after that primetime game. I mean, he's one where it's like it's almost reminiscent of like early Lamar Jackson, where it's like, how do you cover this guy? Because he will just like look for a second and be like, nope, not there, and then he's just gonna take off. So I mean, he's just gonna like rack up points in this league, especially with the carries and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he goes, and then I mean, Jordan Mason is just CMC part two. Like he's just on that offense, he's just taking all the points.
I literally have Isaac Guerrero on my team just in case Mason gets hurt, because then I hope that can just turn into him. But I don't even know if that's going to be the case. But either way, like you just want to take a chance on somebody in that offense. I agree. And Aaron Jones still doing well, and Aaron Jones is a good player. It's more about injury, and if he's gonna like, that's what I always wait for with him. But on the other side, I mean, I think it's tough because EJ left a lot on the bench, but to me, that's kind of good news for replacing Rice. He lost Rasheed Rice. I mean, he might be
Yeah,
done. He's probably done for the year, potentially. We'll see of what that knee is, but that hurts because he went out early, so he gets zero
right.
points from that anyways. But then he also gets a player who's injured. But he's got AJ Brown who's been hurt. He's going to come back after their bye week. He has multiple guys that he left on there. Chuba Hubbard, I think he left on his bench, if I'm not mistaken. Uh,
He's got Xavier Worthy, Jordan Addison, Chuba Hubbard. So
yeah,
like he
Addis had a
literally
big
has the
game,
next man up for Rasheed
right?
Rice. So he's just gonna plug and play there. And I mean Jordan
Yep,
Addison, like I can get not playing him coming off like ankle
right.
injury, is it
Yep,
gonna be like type thing? So, kind of an unfortunate loss of just like okay, what are we? But now, like less
yeah.
decisions in the future.
He played it how I thought I would have played it. In all honesty, I mean, I think where he's at. The only other thing I would say is potentially Chuba Hubbard because of like he showed what he can do with it's a good offense. But
Mhm.
even that, I thought Dallas has been giving up, points to the running back, and so you're going to play Devin Singletary, giving you a decent floor, you think, and then he has that game, so it's just kind of weird. But he played it like I would have, and just didn't come
Yeah.
out on top with that one. So he's having a tough one there for EJ. But nice butt whooping Casey, and he moves to 3-1, and he's right behind you in the West right now. So
Oh yeah.
Case's aces taking it down, and we had a third ass whooping this one was by 35 again. So it was just like the previous one where Glenn with 103 takes down Zach, who had the low score of the week at only 68 points, especially after having high score of the week last week. So that just feels like a big gut punch right there. Anything of note on this matchup?
I mean, Tony Pollard got a late touchdown, get him a little bit more points. I don't know if you saw the end of that game. I was texting about it yesterday. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, that like Miami Tennessee game.
I didn't
So,
see the end of it. I will say I watched a good amount because I was actually still watching it into the Detroit game. And at one point, the game was so awful. I was like, what am I doing? Why am I watching
yeah.
this game and not the Detroit game?
So there was a safety and Miami had to punt. And so Miami punted, and then they didn't make it into the specific zone, which I didn't know there was a rule for the punt off an onside kick or off of a safety. And they said like they didn't make it there. The guy didn't call for a fair catch. Like literally, it was the most cluster of a moment that I've ever seen. And then they ended up being like, okay, well, the punter didn't drop in the right spot. So then they gave it to Tennessee at the 10-yard line, like going into goal. And I was just like,
What?
it seems like an absolutely absurd thing. It was the weirdest thing ever
Hold on. So you're saying, because I didn't watch, so you're saying that Miami had to punt it
because of a safety.
because of a safety. Since he didn't get into the zone, now Tennessee automatically gets it at Miami's 10?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, unless I just blacked out and missed something. It was like because Miami thought that they recovered it because it was like, I guess a punt after a safety is similar to like a kickoff where it's like a live ball. And the guy saw it like landing short, so he didn't call for a fair catch, and then it bounced, and then Miami recovered, and they're like, "We have the ball," and then they were like, "No, it wasn't right." And then I don't know if you caught the end of the Detroit game, but then there was a safety at the second to last Lions possession. They got cheeky
No.
with it. So they got cheeky, tried to do a play action. It was like 2.5 minutes left and they were up. They tried to do a play action at the goal line, got a safety, and then they did like a regular kickoff. And I was just like, did we not just see them do a punt in the other game? I was very confused. I don't
Yeah.
know what's going on with these rules. It was bizarre.
And I've heard nothing about it, so it's almost like, well, those are just the rules, and somehow it must have worked out. I listened to it's not a new it's a new podcast name, but it's these guys that used to do, I think, around the NFL podcast. It's called Heed the Call. But I'll have to listen to them because they might talk about it in
Yeah.
that because they do theirs is not fantasy focused. It is NFL focused. So I like listening to them too to kind of hear some different perspective on stuff and maybe some deeper insights. But
Yeah.
I'll
I
see
was
if they had
very
anything to say.
I was very confused. I'd have to go back and rewatch it because I had them both on and I was playing NCAA, so I was kind of like half paying attention, but I was just
Sure.
like, what is going on? Like two different safeties, two different kickoffs, like a penalty, but they straight up got the ball at their own 10 because the announcers were talking about it because the over under was set at like 36 and a half, and it
Yeah.
was like 24-12 at that point. So they were like,
Okay.
oh, there's a bunch of people that are probably pretty happy that they get the ball at their own 10. And then they just ran a couple run plays, and I'm pretty sure Pollard ended up getting the touchdown at the end. But
Yeah, I played Pollard over Stevenson in a couple of leagues for that reason of I felt like he would have a better game, and he did definitely. But um, neither of their tight end scored, so it didn't impact the other. But man, I mean, you have two top tight ends that aren't doing anything. Mark Andrews
oh
is
yeah,
just, I mean, I don't know what you can do with the guy, and so that one's a really a real head scratcher for him not scoring any points. But it's funny, Glenn had 103, which to me feels low for what I look at when I see, Tony Pollard 22, Jaden Reed almost with 25. The Ravens defense had 10. He got double digits from both of his wide receivers. It feels like it should have been more, and it wasn't, but he still whooped up on Zach. And on Zach, he had Jonathan Taylor and then nothing else. Literally, no one else got even double digits. It was weird, just
yeah.
messed up.
That's just like that's one of those games where it's like you have Josh Allen and James Cook that are just absolutely tearing it up. Like I looked earlier, like Josh Allen's QB5, James Cook is RB11 right now, and it's like you get a game where they get whooped up on the Ravens, and like if that game goes any differently, like if it's a shootout, then like they probably clear this number, you know.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like one of those like is bad matchup happened, you know.
Throw it away. That's where
Yeah,
I go. I
yeah.
think the only thing that I had to know of Zach's and it wouldn't have changed anything. I feel like instead of Braylon Allen, because of the connection I saw with Daniels and McLaurin, I would have played McLaurin in that spot over a backup running back. I do know that Braylon
Yeah.
Allen's getting better, but Denver's got a good defense, so that's
Yeah,
where I would have made it.
I mean, you expect all the hype about the Jets. Like you'd think that they'd put up a little bit more than 10 points and then end up,
Oh,
you
that was
know.
an awful game. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm hoping people did not watch it because it
Yeah.
seems like one of the worst. I mean, Bo Nix had negative passing yards into like through like the third quarter or something. It was
Yeah.
something crazy.
I will say for Braylon Allen, I mean, like the one primetime game I watched is like when he was running, he was getting chunks. So he's a guy that can break one.
Yeah,
But I think that's one of those things is like he kind of like because it's Brees Hall, like he needs to break one for deep
right.
yardage to like make it worth it. But I mean,
I
in
like
that
him.
case, it's like, you're playing the Broncos. You expect them to get like a bunch of offensive possessions. So I mean, I can kind of see it there.
Sure, I can understand that argument with it. I like Brandon Allen. I mean, I think he's going to be a really good player for him, and especially a good backup. And hopefully, who knows what their plan is with him, but I hope he gets an opportunity to get more plays, and they're giving it to him. So I kudos to the Jets for giving him the amount of work they're giving him, considering they have Brees Hall, who's a
Right.
top three running back in this league. So kudos to them for that. But nice job, Glenn, getting your first W, and making it an ass whooping at that same time. So meow meow. All right, some other teams did play. So Louie and I faced off against each other. Oddly, so I actually was worried, and it seemed like I should have been. Our projections were 20-point different from kind of the start of Monday. But what I was explaining to Allison was, if you think of it this way, let's just say his two players get 5 to 6 points more than their projection, and my two players get 5 to 6 points less than their projections, and boom, it's now I've lost. So like
Right.
that's what I was trying to explain. Is like it's really not that crazy to think that those things can happen. So I definitely was worried. But when Gibbs got his second touchdown, I felt a lot better about my chances at that point. Because when Monty got the first touchdown, I was like, oh fuck, like this is gonna be a game where Seattle doesn't do well against the run. Monty's gonna get a lot more work, and it's just gonna be a tough one. Especially when I think the Lions went up pretty heavy early on. It was like 14-0. And then I
Yeah.
was like, okay, Seattle's going to throw, and then Detroit's going to run. Monty's going to get all this work. JSN's going to get this work, and I'm going to be SOL at the end of it. It didn't quite work out that way, so I'm glad for that. But yeah, I felt like lucky to get kind of skate out of that. Anything that you noted from this matchup?
I'm just noticing his quarterbacks. I didn't know he had Jared Goff sitting on the bench. And I mean, it's like that's a great problem to have is you got Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff sitting there because Jared Goff threw a perfect game the other night. And,
Yeah,
Lamar is just Lamar and he's just going to put up numbers and stuff like that. But, I mean, definitely tough going up against the like split running back room because it's like, Monty's going to get a lot of the goal line stuff, but Jameer might get some of the like, he's good like a little bit. I think he's better like open field. And so it's like if they get to like, he gets him to the goal line, is Monty going to get the touchdown
yeah,
points? That's always a little bit tough. But I expected JSN to get a little bit more, especially against that defense. I expected
yeah,
to go off like a little bit more than that. But other than that, I mean, like that's a pretty solid like score. I mean, you're the only thing that you'd want a little bit more out of is like Ramondre Stevenson as that running back too. There is like you'd hope
yeah.
for, a little bit more points out of that for him only going, single digits. That's going to be tough. And both your running backs both went for 22. So that's going to put you behind the eight ball as like you're really hoping for, your RB1 and 2 to go off for some points.
Yeah, agreed. And I'd say the same. I don't think there was anything I noted that I would do differently. I mean, Lamar Jackson CD play well. The skill positions just were dominant on my end, which is nice, especially considering Kyler was not dominant on his end, and he scored less than half of his projection.
Yeah.
So I'm glad my other guys kind of stepped up in that. So that was really helpful. And like I, this is not a joke, and you can ask Louis if you want to, but I actually had Chase Brown in as my flex option for a long time that he's going against Carolina, and he ended up getting 25 points or 26 points against
Oh
Carolina.
yeah.
So at first I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, I made the wrong decision. But I mean, it is what it is. And like Deontay did a great job. I mean, getting 18 points from your flex, I'll take that all day. But oddly, I had that choice for Chase Brown. And unfortunately, this week I have to play Chase Brown. I wish he was playing the Carolina Panthers this week. That'd have been really helpful for me to feel
Yeah.
more comfortable about it. But yeah, but it was nice to have some good stuff on my bench as well. So that feels good to have a team that like scored well, but I feel like I'm still in need of some depth there. And Louis had he's got good players. T Higgins, like you said, you might want more out of and more out of Ramondre, but San Fran's a tough defense, so that's a tough call. But
Yeah.
sorry, Elite Show, to give you that loss to go 2-2. But it was a good battle, man, and it had me. I was worried. I was buckled up even on Monday night. All right. Next up is your victory against Tyler. So beat him by 25 points. Tell me about it. How are you feeling and what got you this W?
Not the Miami players at all, which it was one of those things where it's like when we did our mock draft in the preseason, it was like even forget. I drafted at my normal spot and like I think Derrick Henry fell to me at that one. And it was one of those things where when we did the draft, it was like Tyreek was still there. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna be an idiot if I don't take him there. So
Yeah.
um and then obviously stacked up with Achan is interesting, but with the quarterback play, which I was absolutely shocked watching that game because I was like, how do you not get this guy off of a practice team and just say, we're doing, we're peppering the defense, we're doing screen passes, we're doing slants, we're doing curls, we're doing short stuff. We'll try to break Tyreek free like one or two times in the end zone, like we'll just send him one, but just watching them kind of fall apart. I was shocked by the play call because I was expecting like I call going into yesterday, like I had the two Miami players and he had D Hop. So I was still feeling like okay about the win at that point. But I was just like, how do you not scheme something up for Huntley to like just get them the ball a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, look at what Matt LaFleur did with Malik Willis. And I felt like you should be doing that. But to me it feels like Mike McDaniel wants to run his offense and he
Yeah,
does not cater it to who he's has, whereas LaFleur does the opposite. He looks at who he has and says, "Well, this is what we got to do," and
right.
guess who's winning ball games and guess who's not winning ball games, and it's tough, but I mean that's kind of what you have to do, and the best coaches do that, and that's why LaFleur is one of the best. I mean, when he first got picked up there, I remember everyone's like, who the heck is this guy? Like, who is LaFleur? Who is this guy? And he's shown that he should be there. So, and that's what it's funny. I just thought of that. That's what I thought of was like he should have done something more like LaFleur. He's just not
Yeah.
that maybe that good as a coach. I don't know. But to me, what set you apart was also your defense. The 49ers getting 23 points. I mean, that's
Yeah.
huge.
I mean, you look at like if 49ers are playing a better team and Brees Hall has like a standard Brees Hall game, like we're singing a different tune at this point. Like
Yeah.
he's only going for four. Like
Yep.
I think he only had like at halftime, wasn't he at like -3 or something like that?
It
Like,
was bad. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I think Denver's underrated as a defense. They always have a good defense, but your point, like Brees Hall with less than 5 points, like that's not going to do it for you for one, but two, like you don't expect that.
right. And
And
I mean, I'm looking right now, and he's got DeAndre Swift on the bench who had 29, but like
you're not
you know,
playing him after
no,
the first 3 weeks where he got, I
no.
think his best week was like 6 points. You're
Right.
not playing
You're
Swift.
looking at like what would you leave behind, but like you're not playing that.
Michael Pittman hadn't done anything until Joe Flacco comes in the game, and now all of a sudden Pittman is a real effing option, and that's a good news for. Well, we'll see this week if that's what happens, but
Yeah.
it's like Pittman. I wouldn't have played him either. The only one I may have played was actually Kirk over Hopkins, just because I just haven't seen anything from Hopkins yet to tell me that he's any good. Whereas from Kirk, I actually have seen some
Right.
stuff. So that's the only thing, but that wouldn't have got him the W. So it doesn't really matter in the end for that. But it does matter in the sense of like, hey, you want to score as many points as possible for those tiebreakers in the end. But that was the only thing I
Right.
noted. Otherwise, like he played it how I would have played it too. I mean, you're throwing Amari Cooper out there against Vegas. I think he should have a good game. And he doesn't. It's like that's that boom
Right.
bust type that can be really frustrating in the end for that.
Yeah.
But nice W Sam to stay undefeated. And for Tyler, that's it's a tough loss, but you're still fourth, so it's not like you're at the bottom at six. I mean, you're still fourth at 1-3, and you've put up some good stuff, and you got some guys who put up some good numbers this week. So be on the positive side, man. And last but not least, our nail biter of the week. And Andy eked out a victory with only 88 points over Bobo, just shy of 85. What do you think was the difference here?
I mean, quarterback play. Both of Andy's quarterbacks went off for over close to
Yeah.
35, like that, and on the bench. And just tough. I mean, tough for Jalen Hurts. I mean, I have him in another league, and it's just like, just lack of options right now. Luckily, they're going into a bye week, so he'll have, weapons coming out of the bye because
Hmm.
Philadelphia looked a little bit broken there. But I mean, that's one of those things where it's like, it's just a matchup thing where you have both your quarterbacks going up against each other. And if it's like one team's playing incredibly well and one's not, like you just see it on the scoreboard like twofold. So,
Yeah, agreed. Obviously, Baker carried Andy because everyone else on his team. I mean, honestly, I think Kelsey, his numbers got saved from Rasheed Rice getting injured early on because I don't think he gets 12 and a half if Rasheed Rice is there.
mhm,
So he kind of gets lucky in that sense for that part. Unfortunately, came off of an injury. Bijan is not playing up to snuff right now, and he also got like a hamstring injury, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
Drake London had been doing well, but it seems like him and Kirk still aren't on the same page, and Kirk loves Mooney. He likes Mooney a lot more. And while Mooney had fewer points, like London gets a target. London had, I think, 12 targets, 13 targets, something crazy, but only got like six of those 13. But
yeah,
Mooney's getting those deep shots. So if he can connect on some of those, it's helpful. And on Bob's side, I mean, Brian Robinson looking great this year, still looking great. And that's, I think if you had Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson together, like what a combo that would be on your team. And I'm the one who talked at the beginning of the year, like I've always shy away from a quarterback running back combo because I just feel like they cap each other's upside. But shoot, so far that hasn't really been the case. I mean, look at Allen and James Cook, like Zach has. If you had Jaden Daniels and Brian Robinson, you'd be doing well. Hurts hasn't been performing as well, but Saquon has, and so it's a tough kind of game all around. And Tampa Bay has a good run defense, so I didn't expect Saquon to do as well because Vita Vea has been back, and so that's a tough one that's in the middle of that Tampa Bay line. Um, so just a highlight to others that like, hey, that might be one defense to stay away from with your running backs is that Tampa Bay D with Vita Vea back, because that guy's like what, like 350 pounds or something,
Oh
something in
yeah,
the
it's
middle.
a freaking
But
monster.
the only thing I will say for Bob, and I this is where I would disagree with one play, is I had to play Jamison Williams instead of Quentin Johnston. I know that Jameson did not have a good game last week, but 2 weeks in a row for the weeks 1 and 2, he showed he played well. You can't with a boom bust guy kind of like that. You can't just not play him, especially over a Quentin Johnson who's not going to get the passing work. I think he did it because it's going against Kansas City, and you think, but Kansas City is no longer that team that has a terrible defense and just throws a lot and is going to score a lot and you got to keep up. They're just not that kind of team anymore. So I don't think
Right.
you can look at Kansas City the same way as we used to like 2 years ago.
Yeah. And I think it's tough too because it's like, you look at the roster that Bob put out there and it's like three Eagles. And so like you have a tough game and especially too like kudos to him for flipping that coin right there because he's throwing the Eagles defense against Baker Mayfield. So like if that
Yeah.
pays off, like
Yep.
he's winning that game,
Good
right? Like
point.
if they force like one or two interceptions or a fumble, like and the game script flips a little bit, like they're winning that game. So I mean that's a little bit of a tough, thing where it's like you're going up against the opposing quarterback, playing against that defense you're going against. But I would say I was just scrolling through the roster and Bob's got a couple guys on the bench that should be coming back from injury here soon. So,
Yep.
I
He,
expect that
he's
to,
hurting.
yeah. I
He,
mean, it should be next week. A couple guys are coming back for him, so roster should kind of be moving up a little bit more.
well, Sam, we'll find out here when we get to the week 5 matchups. We'll see how that's actually looking for him, and maybe we'll discuss whether or not that is. I'm going to hope that they're coming back for him, because if they're not, I don't think he doesn't have enough players to field a team. Like, and that's not a joke. So,
Uh-oh.
so yeah, exactly.
I
So,
haven't even looked ahead yet.
oh man. So yeah. So we'll talk about that here in a moment. Um, but before we talk about that, Sam, as you know, we got our sponsor break for Dr. Sam's uh, weekly injury report. This week's sponsor, Andy's Smoked Old Fashions. Andy is accustomed to getting lit up in the FFFL this year, which is why his company now specializes in smoked old fashions. Even his victories are bitter and muddled. Andy's food and beverage background is why he is an excellent maker of cocktails. His inability to win big in the FFFL is why they're smoked. If you're looking for a way to soothe the pain, try Andy's Smoked Old Fashioned and set yourself up for future victory. Well, thank you for sponsoring us, Andy. We appreciate that. That's very kind.
And I heard he muddles his fruit too, which is something that I've never heard of in an old fashioned, but I will
You've
have
never heard of that?
No, normally it's just like, put the bitters, you mix it all up, you get the orange peel, you express it, and you throw it on top, but never with the muddling for an old fashioned.
Well, now you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. Sam, I'm going to throw it over to you for the injury report. Let me see if I can highlight you here. We're going to highlight the speaker. There you go.
All right. So here's what I got for week 4. Not quite as many injuries. Obviously Malik Neighbors, wide receiver for the Giants, went out with a concussion. The good news is they do have that big gap between the Thursday night game and their next game, so typically no production drop for him. Christian Watson, wide receiver for the Packers, looks like it was a high ankle sprain, so that's about probably 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the severity of that. Um, Cordarrelle Patterson, running back for, I believe, the Steelers, went out with what they're calling an ankle. I know the Steelers, their entire running back room is pretty much injured at this point.
Yeah.
Um, Anthony Richardson, quarterback for the Colts, didn't play with a hip pointer, so he's probably going to end up playing next week, but maybe just a little bit of lack of mobility there. Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Colts, it looks like it's a mild high ankle sprain. So there's a potential for him to miss week 5. Typically with those high ankles, they're worse than the low ankle sprain. But that's one where it's just kind of checking the report and seeing how he practices this week. Rashid Rice, wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. They said it was leaning towards an ACL. I haven't seen like a definitive it is an ACL. I mean, those guys are getting MRIs like right off the bat, and so you potentially think to see like if it is an ACL, he's probably going to get it right away. So my guess is it's more of a chance that it's probably like a bone bruise, a lot of inflammation, and maybe like a partial tear. Because I'd assume if it was like torn right off the bat, they would have got him in surgery to get him back for next year. So that's something interesting. They said he was getting like second opinions and everything. So my guess is it's like a partial tear type thing. He's still probably going to be out for at least 4 weeks, but um Bijan Robinson looks like he's got a couple different things going on. They said he was limited in practice with a shoulder last week, and now he's also got a hamstring. So he was kind of a little bit limited in the game last week. So that's another one, just like checking reports, seeing how he practices. Is it like a tweaked hammy or is it actually pulled? Will Levis, quarterback for the Titans, with an off-shoulder AC sprain, so he'll most likely play next week. But there's going to be a little bit of a productivity dip to like the deep ball that he can throw. And then guys that look like they're returning next week. Looks like Joe Mixon's coming back. Tank Dell should be coming back. Trey McBride should be coming back. David Njoku looks like he's slated to come back potentially week 5 or 6, but there is going to be a drop with that ankle. And then AJ Brown and Devontae Smith will both be back week 6 because the Eagles have a week 5 bye next week. And then the whole CMC debacle with like bilateral ankle tendonitis, he's still like 4 to 6 weeks away. So, I mean, that's something where you're just watching the ramp up, hoping he gets back at some point. But that's what I got.
Nice job, Dr. Sam. That's actually a lot of good info there. A lot of tough stuff too, because with the Eagles players, you're right, they have the bye, so that's actually helpful for them to get even more rest, and hopefully for them to there you're going to miss them anyways. So that's a time frame you like. I'd like to see Trey McBride, maybe come back.
He
That
should
would
be
be
back concussion, so probably no dip in efficiency, so he should be good to go.
yeah. So that would be good as well. So I'd like to see him back on my lineup. I mean, I always like that. Oh,
Oh, and I will shout this out because I mean I do get a lot of information like basically I try to Google mostly like fantasy football pages. I'll like Google trying to find information because like the NFL doesn't really do a good job of like posting all the injuries and stuff. But I shouted this out last year, but it's Sports Med Analytics on Instagram. And like he's really good at posting like all the injury reports for a lot of the skill players and even some of the defensive stuff, which is interesting. Like
mhm.
with Michael Parsons going down with a high ankle. So like if you're playing Dallas's defense, like not quite as scary, stuff like that. Like I talked about Joe Alt going down. So obviously like Chargers offense. But he also like does kind of like some highlights on a couple different guys. So like if you're looking at the injury and you're kind of like, I don't know what's going on with this guy, like he does a good job of kind of like explaining that a little bit more. So they're pretty quick vids, but him on Instagram, Sports Med Analytics, he's really good.
I like that, and thank you a shout out for that too. That's helpful for some of us that might need a little bit more info with it, just to make sure that we're on top of it as well, because there's a lot of things that factor in to what we're doing. Um, for me, an example is the Tampa Bay run defense because Vita Vea was hurt early in the season, and so you could run on him, but now you can't run on him, right? And to your point, even last night, Phillips for the Dolphins, I mean, he's an important piece to that defensive line there. I guess their defensive pass rush, and he's now out potentially. I don't know. I know he left the game, but that was an
Yeah.
important part of that defense to provide pressure, right? So all those things do matter. The offensive line pieces really matter because if you can't stay upright, how you gonna that's gonna be tougher for your run game and your pass game. Um, so yeah, if you can, you said it was sports med,
It's Sports Med Analytics.
sports med analytics. Okay,
Yeah, Sports Med Analytics. You look it up. He's basically all his whole entire page is like it's also very data driven. So he does like he posted the injury update and it was like um let's see, like Christian Watson, high ankle, video suggests moderate severity, average equals 2 to 4 weeks, data favors week 7 return is most likely. Like he posts like these things with stuff like that. So you can kind of like see and be like, okay, like, do I just need to put him on my bench or do I need to start looking at the waiver wire a little bit more? So
I like
He's
it. Well, thank you, Dr. Sam.
thank
All
you,
right.
Andy Old Fashions.
Yeah. All right. That means we got some injuries. We also got bye week, so we need to understand some waiver wire what to do's. I'm not sure that anybody has any QB needs this week, but they might. We got Jalen Hurts going down. He's on bye. Maybe Bob needs to pick up somebody off of this waiver wire. Who knows? Any of these QBs that you might actually be interested in this week?
I'd probably take Tyler Huntley, honestly. I mean, I think hopefully they'd scheme something a little bit better for him. I mean, it looked like Tyreek Hill was absolutely pissed on the bench, so you'd have to think that, he left Kansas City for something. And so you'd like to think that they're going to be listening to him a little bit. And he looked absolutely furious. So you and Tyler Huntley also has like probably my guess the biggest like scramble potential. So you're getting like a couple points that way too.
Yep.
So I mean matchup wise, playing against New England, hopefully some scheme better, and that upside in the rush, he's probably the guy that I would pick.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the only way you'd ever even go with Daniel Jones is if Malik Neighbors is in. But even if you actually watch that game, Malik Neighbors saves his ass.
Oh
That's what
yeah.
happens. Like Neighbors saves him and makes him look better than he actually is. So many of those throws were so poor, like well underthrown. I mean, he's underthrowing the ball most of the time. So I'm hoping
Yeah.
he can change that because they could have had a lot more points and done a lot better if he actually just threw the ball that would lead a receiver to where they got to go. But
And never
I'm an
forget
excited,
they paid him instead of Saquon.
yeah, because he's so much better.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, none of these guys inspire much confidence. But I would agree, Tyler Huntley's in an offense that if they scheme it right, I mean, he's got Tyreek Hill, he has Jalen Waddle, he has Devon Achan, Raheem Mostert might be coming back. I mean, he has weapons, and so to your point, might be the best one because also some of these other guys they don't have good matchups they're going against. You don't
Right.
want Andy Dalton against Chicago Bears. You don't want Gardner Minshew against Denver. Jameis is still on here. They're still giving it 4-3. They're saying
Yeah.
any day now.
We can only hope. Jameis
I
is
know.
electric. Electric football.
Oh, exactly. So we'll keep him on this bottom of this list, and hopefully he'll move to the top of this list at some point soon. Now let's hit up the waiver wire running backs. Anybody on this list that you feel like is a priority?
No.
Uh,
Who's the does somebody have the Miami backup?
well, I have Jalen Wright.
That is he the he's Achan's backup? Yeah, okay. I was
He
gonna
is
say
he has
I was
been
watching
that
he was
guy. He performed better than Achan.
yeah,
He's a rookie. I don't know. I mean, but with Mostert coming back, it seems like they're not giving Wright a bunch of work though. They're trying to
yeah.
filter it through Achan mostly but maybe Wright. But Wright's starting to get a little bit more run, so
Yeah,
we'll
he
see.
he looked good last night. But other than that, I mean it's slim pickings out there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they have Emmanuel Wilson at the top because he's the backup to Josh Jacobs in Green Bay right now, especially with
Right.
Marshawn Lloyd out and injured. A lot of these guys are backup guys. I still like Ray Davis as a backup guy because you're in a good offense. Trey Benson is a good backup guy in a good offense. And hey, Trey Sermon, if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play this week, Trey Sermon is the Colts backup. So if
You know
you're in
Ohio State
need,
guy?
huh?
Ohio State guy?
Trey Sermon?
Yeah.
I don't know where he came from, but he was the guy that went to the 49ers. And then, like, everyone thought he'd be the guy. And then, obviously, he didn't sit in favor with Shanahan. He goes to the Eagles, and then he goes to the Colts. So, this is like his third team in 3 or 4 years. But
I feel like he was a guy that was oh he did go to Ohio State.
did he? See, I don't watch college ball, so I don't know much. Tyrone Tracy was getting some play too, though. He might be another person that's
I'll tell
interesting.
I'll tell you what, you guys, I don't know what you guys everyone was doing on Saturday night, but I was watching Georgia Alabama and that game was an electric factory. And that was better than any NFL game this entire weekend.
Allison and I were on a date. We
Yeah,
were on a date.
it's overrated. Not on Georgia Alabama weekend. Are you kidding me?
We were in bed by 9:15 on our date too. So that
Yeah. But
was
there's a
part of it.
17 17-year-old kid on Alabama, wide receiver that just took the entire defense out and just
Really?
won them the game. Yeah, with
Okay.
nasty footwork.
Okay. I like it. I like hearing that. Oh, speaking of taking people out, was it? I think it was Montgomery. That hit Montgomery put on the Seattle Seahawks defensive back,
Oh
and
yeah,
Monty didn't move. Monty got it, turned, boom, and that
low
guy
man wins,
was
baby.
pancaked. What was it?
Low man wins.
Yeah, he was. Oh man, I've liked Monty for a while. I'm glad he's on the Lions, man. I like that guy in general. But anywho, yeah, I'm with you. There's a lot of backups on here, so pick your poison, I guess, for that stuff. What about waiver wire wide receivers? I actually think we got some on here that we can discuss. Anybody on here that you're like or maybe put as your top priority?
Wendell Robinson is getting a lot of target share.
He
And that's
is.
something like, when I spend most of my time just looking at like gambling and stuff like that, it's like, with Malik Neighbors getting most of the looks, but getting double and stuff like that, like he's getting a lot of targets out there. Darius Slayton just like isn't the guy that he was prior, so he's really not getting like as much, but um looks like he loves getting targets out there. And then
Yep.
even maybe Tutu Atwell, just with all the depth of wide receivers that are down. Um, but I mean, it's not a great matchup because I think Green Bay's defense is fairly solid. But I mean, just looking at like next man up mentality, like Stafford's a great thrower and he's got to throw to somebody. So I think he hit his tight end a bunch of times against the Bears. But that's something I'd look at, those two guys.
Tutu and Stafford have seem to have a connection too. So
Hmm.
they it seems like from what they're saying, Tutu's not out there as much as these other wide receivers, but when Tutu's out there, Stafford is looking for him. So that's always a good thing. And you brought up we'll talk about Parkinson in the next one. How about that? Because I got some thoughts on that man.
Okay.
Um, but I think honestly, man, Wandale, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavian Wicks, Tutu Atwell, Xavier Leggett. I'd even throw maybe Whittington in there if Demarcus Robinson is hurt. Lockett even got some run last night. I mean,
Mhm.
there's a lot of wide receivers on here, especially if you're on a bye. You need to pick somebody up. Christian Watson is out. So they're talking about Dontavian Wicks having this big game. I don't know about you. I don't know who watches these games, but I think Wicks's problem, he has some of the worst hands I've ever fucking seen. And he should have had like three touchdowns. He dropped from my EJ, you tell me if I'm wrong and please message. But Dontavian Wicks looks like he got 13 targets and caught five of them or six of them. And he should have caught like nine of them. They were like on his hands. And he had one that, yeah, it was a little lower of a throw, but he didn't have to like dive for it. He reached down, he drops it. He drops the one in the end zone. He dropped, I think, another one that I saw. I was like, dude, this man cannot. And this is earlier in the year where I've seen throws thrown his way. I'm like, dude, the guy can't catch the freaking ball,
Right.
and that's his problem. But he still gets the ball. He still gets the ball thrown to him a bunch. So he is a good player, potentially have. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good wide receivers out there. Again, look at your matchups, pick your poison. Because I look at the Green Bay guys are looking good this week. Wandale, to your point, man, if Neighbors is there, he's like almost a must because it's just him and Neighbors. That's what they're
Yeah.
doing. They're just throwing it to those guys. So
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff out there this week. Now let's move on to the tight ends.
There he is.
Sam, before I'm gonna let you talk, this Colby Parkinson seems like such a wuss. Oh my God, I feel like I watch him play, and it just he's trying to avoid contact. He gets seemed like scared. It seems like he is a little bit frightened out there at times. I don't know what's going on.
Where's Tyler Higbee nowadays? Is he still there?
Yeah, but he had the ACL injury last year.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
what
was trying to remember. I
happened.
was like, who was the back or who was the tight end for the Rams? But
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
and you said Stafford threw him the ball many a time. It's close now. Problem is he's not athletic, and it's a lot of close to the line of scrimmage type of throws. So, but hey, if you want 5 points, you probably get it
yeah.
from the guy.
I was gonna say, yeah, you can't really expect like your, tight ends to go off for 30 nowadays, it
Nope,
feels like
unless they're
this
Tucker
year. So,
Craft.
yeah. So I mean it's one of those like I'm trying to see how many points he had last week.
Who, Tucker Craft or Colby
Oh,
Parkinson?
Parkinson. Is he
I'd
already
love
gone?
to know. I haven't looked, but when I out there again, that's more of the eye test of I I hate watching him play football, and he won't be on my fantasy teams because I think he's just a big old wuss.
Oh, he only had 5.3 last week. So
But how
you're
many
right.
targets?
Four receptions on 7 targets for
Right,
30 yards.
right. That's
So
what I'm
okay,
saying.
I can see that. I just feel like from watching that game, because I had eyes on the Bears game and then nothing until
Sure.
prime time, and I was like, I felt like every time it was just like Parkinson, Parkinson, Parkinson. Like they were just getting him the ball and he was rumbling, fumbling for like 3, 4 yards.
Yeah.
So
Hold on, Sam. Yeah.
Good night, Sam.
good night, Tage. Tell me which one of these tight ends would you pick up for next week?
Eric Ball.
Eric
Uh,
All, she said. Give me
I
a
think
hug.
that's a great call.
I love you. Love you.
We should get our own
Good
team
night.
next year.
What?
Get our own
Okay.
team next year.
I know. Well, the way some teams are going, that might happen. Uh,
College, that's a college fund right there.
yeah, exactly. It's funny. I Tucker Kraft obviously is getting the ball. Like he's getting the ball from Jordan Love. You have less target competition with Watson now out, but he was out early in that game too. But Tucker Kraft looks good. It's funny they drafted him and Musgrave. I think both of them were drafted in the same year, which was last
Yeah,
year, in the same I think round or the next round. They were drafted back to back. And to me, that tells me like they like Kraft, and he has outperformed Musgrave, and he is going to be their top guy. So I
yeah.
think I like him. And I'm not. I told her to say Eric All because I like this kid. So guess who doesn't drop a ball? Eric All. Don't drop the ball. Okay. 4 weeks in a row, or 3 weeks in a row, he's got four of his four targets.
If
Now,
he's a
again,
Michigan,
it's not for a whole lot. It's only four, as you're going to see, 32, 22, 28. So he's not getting a whole lot of yards. But here's another one of these Iowa tight ends
I
that
was an
comes into
Iowa
this
guy.
league. He's an Iowa guy. And you got to know that Iowa is tight end you. That's where all the Laporta, George Kittle,
Oh yeah.
Hawkinson, Noah Fant is not as good. But he's down there. Like so they produce tight ends there.
Oh yeah.
And he's a rookie. I like this guy, and I think they're going to try to integrate him more into the offense because they're not signing T. Higgins next year. I think they want to see what they have in other receiving options. And he
Yeah.
might, I'm just saying it because I like him. He's really not the guy you probably want, but shoot, every 3 weeks in a row, he's 4 for 4 for 30 yards, basically. So
Yeah.
again, like you're saying, if you want 5 points, Eric All will get you 5 points.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I like watching him more than I like watching Kobe Parkinson. So I would put him on my team first.
True. True.
So, but yeah, if I'm going after anybody, it's probably Tucker Kraft and then Eric All because I like him. But even Taysom Hill, man, if he's healthy, I think if Taysom Hill's healthy, he's a big part of that offense. They want him to touch the ball.
Yeah.
It's weird, but it is. I don't know what to say other than it is what it is. And so
Any other offense, that dude is gone in like a year. And like
yeah,
he's never heard from again.
yeah.
But for
But
some
he
reason, it's just like this offense, they're just like, yeah, we're just gonna
and
use
who is this man? Like he's not like they're like, well, he's so good that we got to get it to him however we can do it.
yeah.
Oh, he's a tight end, but no, I think he can run the ball. So let's have him run the ball now instead of Alvin Kamara, which Alvin Kamara is great too. But still, it's like they're giving Taysom Hill had the two rushing touchdowns. It's like
Yeah.
what the
Get him out of here.
heck? Yeah. So if you want a
But
running back in the tight end position, pick Taysom Hill.
uh
So that wraps it up for the waiver wire. What to do's? Thank you for helping me out. And Trade Central. Sam, do you see who I've put on Trade Central here?
yeah, I did not we did not do a pregame, so this is taking me a bit by shock here.
Yes, if you saw Sam's eyes wide open, I am putting Kyron Williams on the trade block. Uh, ultimately, this is a tough one. I love this guy. I just love watching him play. They utilize him a bunch, but I am going into a week here in week 5 where my RB2 will be Chase Brown, and I don't even know if I have another person that could technically like. I guess technically I could put Jalen Wright in there and hope that Raheem Mostert doesn't play, so Wright
Yeah.
will get some run. But otherwise, like I don't really have anybody else. So I'm honestly looking to get a good player. Like I mean, I'm not just giving Kyron away. That's not what this is. But this would be for me to say, hey, I might drop down a tier in running back to get two guys, like to get another running back and something else to help add some depth to my team because I feel like I'm maybe hurting a little bit on that. But this will be a tough one, but I'm putting him out there. So if anybody would like to take a stab at Kyron, come with it, and we'll
I
see
will
what can get
say,
done.
I will say too, because we kind of talked about when we were going through waiver wire stuff, and it's obviously like our league more in particular than any other league that you're going to be in. Like running backs are at a premium just because of like the point scoring system that we're involved with, right? So I mean, if I were some people, and I honestly haven't even looked at my team and what my team look like for next week, which we'll get to shortly, but like some of those guys that are on the waiver, like some of those wide receivers and stuff like that, like I would probably, if you have availability or like a guy in the IR, like snatch up a couple guys and try to use them as like trading pieces, right? So like we're talking about a couple of those wide receivers, whether it's like Tutu Atwell or like Wendell Robinson, like you pick up a couple of those guys and like for this instance, say like, hey, I have a running back 15 and then also this wide receiver, or like, start
Yeah,
using trade pieces because especially once it comes to bye weeks, which is now, like there's going to be even more of a premium on some of these players. So
and that's kind of why I'm throwing him out because I didn't recognize that. I thought I'd have. I like Chase Brown, but I'm not in love with him as my RB2 this week, and that means there's going to be other times. And then I look at my other running backs, and I think I basically have Jameer Gibbs and Kyron Williams. Love them both, great running backs. But I don't have much outside of that for a running back. And in this league, as you said, I mean it's a tight end or tight end. It's a running back premium league where when you won your championship, you had that three-headed monster. You had three. Well, I only have two, and I feel like three is important, but I don't really have the pieces to also get a third, to then
right,
trade, and then I don't have other stuff. So because for me, it's like Nico Collins, it's great. Mike Evans has been down. Like I don't have a lot of other great stuff there. So
right,
I'm putting him out there as no, I'm not gonna like you said, running back 15. That it depends on what the second piece would be.
right, yeah,
But
but
to your point, like I probably would that would probably be the furthest I would drop is like a high end running back two.
right,
And that's what Sam is saying. So when I say running back one, running back two, it's a running back one is basically running back 1 through 12, technically. It's just are they on
yeah,
the high end of that or the low end of that? A low end running back one is the running back 10, 11, 12. A high end running back two would then be 13, 14, 15, because, anyways, there's 12 teams. Get with
yeah,
it. But,
yeah.
but yes, I'm putting them out there. So if anybody would like to make some offers, let's talk trade. Okay, let's talk trade. Now we have our weekly segment, Javante or Godwin. This week was Javante by 3 total points. So slowly but surely. Javante, though, he stayed at running back 41. He didn't lose a spot. However, Godwin, he lost a few spots. He lost 3 spots. I mean, that shows that Javante is doing better. Right, Sam?
He's on the way. Give him time. Give him a
He
little
is now
bit.
averaging half the points that Chris Godwin is,
He just
but he
looks
did have a
so
better
angry
week.
though. He just looks
So
like an angry man. So you let him get up to full speed. That's an angry dude.
I would agree. I'm hoping it's Kenneth Walker light. That's what I'm hoping. He turns into. That would be
Yeah.
wonderful. That'd be nice. But Godwin still doing his thing. He didn't have a great week. He had less than 10, but yeah, he still got like 6 balls for like 60 some yards or something. Like that's what I thought Godwin would do all the time. That's a standard Godwin game is 6 catches, 65 yards. It's just that he'd had touchdowns the previous week, so that was helpful. But yeah, but that's where we stand after 4 weeks of play in the FFFL. Now we are at the comment of the week. I threw a couple out there. I don't know if you had some that you had on your mind, but for me, these are the two. I like these two gifts that came out because of their timeliness with it. But Glenn, when he ended up after Sunday posting a perfect gift for his team of the meow meow, like, is this mic
Yeah,
on? I like that one a lot.
that was funny.
And then Andy's shortly after, it was like that next morning, and I just liked the GIF itself because I could feel like it's a very much like I just want to fucking win. Like it's not it's not even like excitement. It's just like I just want to get a victory. Can I please just get one?
Yeah, I think that one was my favorite was just that gif. I think non-football related was Glenn's other gif of Jack Sparrow watching the his boat go down just because it was very timely for obviously like we had a wedding get canceled in Asheville because of how bad the flooding was, but it was just kind of like bring a little humor to the party of a bad situation. Just like he's like, all good, like we're just floating along.
Yeah. And I don't know all that was like where that was like really devastated with it, but Glenn being out in the Carolinas now, I think he's in North Carolina, so therefore just like, hey, realize you want to reach out to Glenn, who's in the FFFL, make sure he's doing okay. And as you said, he sent a beautiful gift that showed that he's doing just fine.
Yeah.
He'll have many sequels, and he'll be all right. All right, now we got to move into this upcoming week. Here's where we stand. I guess I don't know where to put this now. I'll start it here because I'm going to talk about the top, and then I'll move it after that. But here's where we are in the standings. So you and I are still at the top. That's what happens. We're rolling at the top. I know week 3 got taken over a bit from me, but now we're back. We're still 4-0 each of us running our divisions. You got then Zach at 3-1 in the East. A couple guys at 2-2, and they might be some Logises. And then Glenn at 1-3, getting his first victory of the year this past week, putting himself above Allison, who is the lone person left at 0-4. And then in the West,
Womp womp.
well, yeah. In the West, you got yourself 4-0. Casey right behind you at 3-1. And then you got Bob by his lonesome at 2-2. And then you have a few 1-3s there, resting at the bottom of the West. In regards to season stats, we have you at the very top of points at 501. So the first person to reach that 500 point mark is Sam. I'm just underneath that at 485. Then you have, because he's also 3-1, you have Zach and Casey next. So 3, but then the third highest scoring person is Bob at 482. Unfortunately for Bob, he's kind of trending downward in scoring, though. Each week it seems to get less and less and less, Bob. So we got to focus on that. And this week, based on what you're going to see, I don't know if Bob's going to be going upward in his trajectory. So we shall
I'd
see.
be I'd be interested to go back and see points scored this year versus last year because I feel like we got a lot of scores in the 80s, which I feel like we did not have a lot of last year.
The NFL in general is lower in scoring this year. They were talking
Yeah.
about that, and I think it may have just been week 1. As far as it was either week 1 or week 1 and 2 combined, but I think it was just week 1. There was last year, I think 110 touchdowns in week 1, whereas this year in week 1 there were 66.
Oh wow.
Right? So, and I think that trend kind of continued on. What do you attribute that to?
I think some of the new rules, I mean, I feel like kickoffs are not being returned quite as far. I think that whole like span of too many guys in the backfield with that penalty, guys were getting behind the chain. Like I feel like I don't know, I know this is true in college, but there's more flags in college this year
Okay.
than last year. And so I don't know if that's just like with all the rule changes
Or
that
the
have
illegal formation type stuff,
yeah,
in a
they were just saying
sense?
in general, like one of the podcasts I was listening to, they were just talking like this year the average is like it's up significantly from where it was in up to October last year. So I don't know if that's just like some of the new rule stuff, some of the new kickoffs, because I feel like guys don't really have a chance to break tackle, like break it as far. And I mean, like punt returns, I feel like they're doing all right, but like some of these kickoffs, it's just like all of a sudden here's a wall. And so it's like you're kind of like running into the wall where before, like when you had these gunners coming down, you could kind of had a minute to find a lane type thing.
Sure.
So if that's like just worse field position, that's something I'd have to like dive deeper into. But
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly what it is, but I will say, like, can we get back to preseason football? Like, can we get back to playing these guys and getting them ramped up so that the regular season isn't such a shit show in the beginning? You know what
yeah,
I mean? Like, I think that's another important part.
they're never
You're
gonna
somebody
do
that
that if they add even if they add another game because they're wanting to like push it out. I think again like two
they want to
bye
put it up
weeks
to
to another
18.
game. So it's like these guys don't want to be playing freaking 20 games a year.
No, and I can agree with that, but at least play them in some part of the game. Play them for a quarter, like get them into some groove
Yeah,
of some kind. Because as you know, you work out, and you know how it is when you begin to work out. Like you
yeah,
got to like get through some of that pain, get through some of that rust. You're going to start getting better as you're working out. You're going to like not be as sore the next time. And I feel like that's what happens, right? So when we remove a preseason, now our preseason is the beginning of the season. And for to
right.
your point though, the NFL and for those players, like they give zero shits about that. They don't care in that regard. And so but
And
I
also
just
a
think
lot of
that's
injuries.
one of the biggest reasons.
A lot of injuries this year too.
And I think that's part of it. I think
Yeah,
that's truly part of it is that you're going from 0 to 100. Like
yeah.
that's what it is. Whereas preseason, at least you can kind of ramp up a bit
Yeah,
for
and
it.
I think some of it too now with just like everything that's going on, especially too, they're doing like the Aaron Hernandez like documentary and stuff like that. It's like these guys are starting to realize like a couple guys are wearing the Guardian caps. They're like
Yep.
football is not life, and it's
Yeah.
like so I think some of these guys that are having these like nagging injuries and stuff like that, they're not just like it's not the old football where it's like Toradol tape, you're back in. It's now like, like AJ Brown hurt his hamstring. He said, I don't even think he actually pulled his hamstring. I think he just said like it didn't feel right in warm-ups. So he just like didn't play. And you're kind of
Yeah.
like, it's early in the season, so these guys don't really care as much because it's like, when it comes to like we need to win the game for playoffs, yeah, they'll probably play. But some of these guys I think are, sitting out because they already got the big money. So they're like, whatever.
Antonio Pierce telling them making business decisions.
Make
We're gonna make
business.
our own business decision.
Yeah.
So that's where that goes. But I would agree. But this is where we stand. You can kind of see where the points line up and where you might be at. So I will be checking this out each week. And Louis is just increasing his lead on moves made. So
Yeah, my God.
he's at 15 already. The next closest to him is actually Andy at 9, then Bob at 8, then Kyle at 7. So that's kind of where we stand with that. And some others like just kind of sprinkled in there. But
I got one. I only made one move.
yeah, you got one, I got 5. So I'm like right there, kind of in the middle, I would say.
That's on me not checking fantasy till Thursday and being like, oh shit. I should probably open my app and take a look at my squad.
Well, I mean, it's left you at the top of the waivers every week. So there you go. And you're 4-0. You might be saving that top of the waiver for
Yeah.
something importante. All right. Well, let's hop into next week's matchups and see what we got here. So, first up, blorp. Here we go. First up, we have, nope, that's not what we have. Started from the bottom. We got Glenn going up against Allison. So Allison is 6th in the East. Glenn is 5th. So they're at the bottom of the East matchup. You have Allison at 0-4, Glenn at 1-3. So we're 1-7 combined in this matchup. Um, I believe these are up to date, if I'm not mistaken, but there are some things that could be telling. Neighbors, you said he should be.
Should be good
Hope
with 8 days rest. He should be good, no drop off.
Yeah, that's going to be a critical part to her game plan. And then I think for her, she just might have a question at flex. She played Roma Dunze this week, but they are playing against Carolina, who's not a good defense. So maybe you do play him this week. Who knows? And then on Glenn's side, Raheem Mostert, y'all don't see. He's on the bench. Does he play this week? Because he might be needed, considering what Glenn has in his backfield right now of two in a sense, like number twos in their own team of Jaleel
Right.
McLaughlin and Zach Charbonnet.
Right.
So, anything that you're noting in this matchup or that think might be a question?
The only thing that scares me, like the two things are Caleb Williams. I mean, I think he could go off, but I mean, just him being the quarterback one on that team is just that's something that's tough just because he's like learning. And so that might be like a trade piece. I might have, I don't know who I have as a quarterback, but we'll see. And then the Browns defense against Washington, because Washington's been putting up points. And so that might be a little bit of a scary thing. But I was just kind of looking at the defenses that are on the board,
Yeah.
and there's a couple, but
Yeah,
um,
there are a few actually out there that I would take, and I think every week, unless you've got a stellar defense like a Chicago Bears or something, you got to be looking at that each week. And
yeah,
shoot, because he's got Caleb, and if he's going to play him, she might play Roma Dunze just to kind of counterbalance that. I believe she's probably not going to stick with Carson Steele. I can't imagine that he'll actually hit the projection of 8.
yeah,
Looks like Kareem Hunt will be in there. So she's got a lot of questions, probably on both sides. And the last one I'll throw out for Glenn, he may be looking to make a change at tight end until Mark Andrews gets figured out, and
yeah.
we see what's going on in that offense. So
Tucker
it's tough
Craft.
to do. Yeah, honestly,
Look at
I
Tucker
think it's
Craft.
I think it's tough to do based on the name, but at some point you gotta say, I gotta see it. I don't mind being on my bench. I gotta see it before I'm gonna do it because I think
Yeah,
that I know he's put up at least 2 goose eggs, if not 3.
yeah.
So
He just even from game one, he just didn't
right.
look. He was, and then with that ankle, like, and he's
Yep.
older, right?
Yep.
Older-ish. So, you know,
And their offense slightly different with Derrick Henry there now. Like they're trying to utilize Derrick Henry, and as
right?
we know, Derrick Henry gets even better as the season goes on, usually. So when the weather
Tractor
starts to get
Cito.
colder, huh?
They call him Tractor Cito.
Is that what they call him?
That was I think it was from one of the games that they played in like Mexico City or something like that. And the guy announcer called him like Tractorcito, meaning like a little tractor in
Love
Spanish.
it. Oh
It's
my
like
God, it's because he is a beast.
freaking Tractorcito season when the weather gets colder, baby. He just gets downhill.
Well, they on the Fantasy Footballers podcast I listen to, they call him the Yeti because they
Yeah,
say, yeah, when it starts to get cold, the Yeti comes out and he
another
just,
good one too.
oh my God. Because why do you want to be hit by that man? It's going, no, thank you. Oh my God. All right. But good luck to you too. Hopefully, Allison, I'm rooting for you to get your first victory of the year. And that way we have nobody that's defeated at that point. So that's the goal here. Glenn, you got yours, okay? All right, next up. Like father, like son, because they're both 2-2. And it's going to be a close matchup, I think. First off, Louis doesn't even have his lineup in a sense set because he's got Monty in there right now. Monty's going to be on bye, so he's going to have to make a decision. He's got Kareem Hunt on the bench. I imagine that's who's going to go into that spot because I don't know that he has anybody else to go into that spot. But Hunt is slated to get about 13 points, so add 13 to that score. And now you got Louis at about 109 and a half. I think it's like 13-3. So it's going to be a little bit closer in projection. I know that means everything here, but but that will happen. Anything that you're noting from this matchup, or you might see as being something that someone might change?
No, I mean honestly, like looking side to side, like it's pretty even overall. Like this
Yep.
one should be one of the one like, you give Lamar the slight edge over Dak, but then, you're gonna give the running backs, more of an edge for Kyle, and then you got, CD and JSN that can go off for a decent amount with the wide receivers. So it should be a pretty tight matchup overall.
Yeah, I think the same. I wonder if he's going to keep Zeke in or not. That's one of my thoughts. Is you could put Walker into that spot and then just figure out a flex, maybe a different
Yeah.
flex. I don't know. So that
Zeke is
could,
very touchdown dependent. Like if they're in
yeah.
the red zone, he can maybe get a touchdown. It makes it worth it because he'll get you 10. But
And I don't like it against Pittsburgh. I mean, Pittsburgh has a solid defense, so
right.
I don't like it against them. But we will see. But you're right. It's going to be this will be an interesting one to watch for sure on that side. So we'll see. Next up, I'm calling this the matchup of the week. So top two teams in the East. Me going up against Zach. Um, this is where, like I said, I'm a little worried in my running back two spot. If McBride comes back, I feel better about my tight end spot. My tight end of the week that I called out for Tyler Conklin, he got 4 points. I mean, he did whatever. But
Yeah.
that's a process over result thing in my head because Garrett Wilson, by the way, last week, he got shut down by Patrick Surtain, just like everybody else does, and they had to throw the ball other places. And that game just, I didn't watch it, so I didn't want to. But I mean, Conklin, I think ended up getting like 6 or 7 targets. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I want. I want if he's getting that many, I feel confident in that. But should be a close one, and I will be choosing a different defense probably because with Phillips out, I didn't like how they looked. Even against Tennessee, even though Tennessee couldn't
Yeah.
do much against them, I think Tennessee does a bad offense and they had other weird stuff going on. But I don't like the Miami Dolphins defense as much, even though it's New England, so that might change. But anything that you're notating from this matchup?
I mean that top three for Zach. I mean Josh Allen, Jonathan Taylor, James Cook. Like that's the big worrisome point. Like
Yep.
obviously a couple guys sprinkled in there like Kyle Pitts, Braylon Allen, like we talked about before. But I mean, if the Bills get their act back together, which I expect that they will after last week, that could be a big swinging point there, right? And then obviously Kyler Murray against San Francisco is going to be a battle. Like I think he'll fare better than New England did, but I still think it's going to be a little bit on the tougher side.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not loving some of these, so we'll even see if I change Deontay. But I think it's tough with bye weeks coming up. Don't have as many options, right, to
Right.
make some of these changes, and you got to do what you got to do in it. Jonathan Taylor, I'll be honest, like just for my own matchup, I'm hoping he maybe sits out this week. Maybe he doesn't need to play. He could
Yeah.
just hang out and rest up that ankle, man. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, man. So we'll see how that goes. But this will be a matchup to watch, and like I said, I'm calling matchup of the week because combined we're 7-1, top of the East, and this will decide the East for at least the next following week. All right, now we're off to the West, and we have Andy, who is the worst in the West, going against you, who is the best in the West. What do you say to this? Because this isn't a true to form, because obviously Dallas Goddard ain't going to play for you, but
True.
maybe
Uh,
Tucker Kraft will. Maybe you got to take your waiver wire thing, your waiver top priority and get Tucker
oh,
Kraft.
maybe I should. Um, I mean, I'm just hoping that um the Miami gets their act back together. Like, I think Tyreek's only projected 10 points right now, and he was like the wide receiver 1/2/3, depending on what you read in the preseason. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, hopefully the Miami Dolphins, for both Andy's sake and my sake, get back together. But I mean, with Jordan Love coming back, hopefully for me at least there's a little bit of rust there, and Bijan's kind of like a 50-50. So I mean he's got a couple guys that are like teetering on that, maybe need one more week to ramp back up, and hopefully that's the case for me. But I mean he could easily have some guys just go off. So
Yeah, it's always tough. Arizona's not a great defense, so you think Debo might do something there. Zay Flowers had a bad week this past week, but Cincinnati's giving up a lot in that pass game, so you're not quite sure there. So I do like a lot of his matchups. I don't like his Bijan matchup. I don't like that because, like you mentioned earlier, Dr. Sam told us that he's got a shoulder injury, a hamstring injury now. He does have Algier, but if Bijan's, I think he's almost hoping that Bijan doesn't play. He can just throw
right.
Algier in there, and then he feels probably better about the situation if that does happen. So that'll be interesting there. And I don't know if you had another tight end. Do you have another tight end on your bench? You don't even know.
I think Fryermuth at one point,
Well,
unless
you don't have him now.
I'm in like three leagues, so I don't
I
even
get,
know.
I
Um,
get it. I don't like James Conner against
oh, I
San
got Cole. I
Francisco.
got Cole Kmet.
That's what it was. I wrote it down. Why am I not looking at my own effing notes? I wrote it down. But I said I put Komet in for Goddard. Komet's number 4 tight end on the year. So
Oh,
you
and
got
I
the
got
top.
I also have David Njoku, who I have to pull off my IR this week because he was on IR after week one.
Oh, okay. So
I got some
he's.
tight ends.
But if he's still listed as out, will they? because they could still list him as out technically, but
Yeah, you
as
got
long
time.
as he's out of your lineup before the start of the games, if in case he's
Yeah,
not injured, that's
yeah,
all
or
right.
what?
Or minus 15 points, son. Commission's going to adjust it, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
we've seen the commission adjust things before in the past. We've seen it all.
that's true. There you go. And I
Drop a
will. I'll
player, pick
do it.
him back up because he did it on accident.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've seen it. We've
Exactly.
seen it before.
I don't know. Would you now be honest with us? And now you probably won't because you're on this podcast. Would you actually play Njoku coming out of that?
Probably not. I don't really. I mean, I drafted Deshaun Watson too, and he's one where I'm probably about to drop him too, just because I don't have a backup quarterback. But I mean, it's like
Yeah.
they just look terrible, and
God, does he ever?
is Amari Cooper still on the Browns, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like some people were saying on Twitter that they were like potential for Amari Cooper to get traded to the Chiefs, and I was like, that might be a thing because like I don't know how many years they signed Deshaun Watson for. I know he got like a pretty big deal, but I mean they just look terrible, and like I almost think that they're gonna like wrap this season up and be like, all right, Nick Chubb, we're not bringing you back till next year,
I'm
like.
wondering that. Yeah.
Like we'll just keep you like we're not even because I mean they just look horrible, and
Yeah, they do.
so I mean I don't
I
know what the
think this is
Browns.
what Deshaun, he's in his third year of that 5 year, I want to say,
Yeah,
or something like that.
I don't know what the guaranteed and stuff like that is or
Well, it was
what.
all guaranteed.
Was it
That was the
really?
problem. They gave
Ugh,
him 250 million guaranteed. The entire contract was guaranteed. That's why it blew up the whole fucking thing. And it's like, wow, for that man, for that
gross.
POS, like, come
Yeah.
on now.
And I mean
Um,
The Browns schedule doesn't get any easier. I mean they're playing the Eagles, then the Bengals, then the Ravens, Chargers, Saints, Steelers. You got the Broncos, Chiefs, Bengals,
dude, think
Dolphins.
about that. You said
Like
Ravens, Chargers, Saints, Steelers. Like those four in a row are rough.
yeah, so you got Commanders, Eagles, Bengals, Ravens, Chargers, Saints, Steelers. Then you get the Broncos. Then you get the Steelers again, then the Chiefs, then the Bengals, then the Dolphins, then the Ravens. So, like, there's a strong chance that this Browns team just craps
Yeah.
out and we're like, we're going to shut it down. So, I mean, there's a chance, maybe depending on reports on how he is this week, if he's playing well, maybe he'll be like an outlet, but I can't really see myself holding on to many Browns.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Um, I'm not liking them anyways, but should be a good, interesting matchup. I think Andy has not really hit his projections as well this year, so that should be interesting to see how that hits. But we are hitting in that bye week time frame, so things have got to be adjusted. I don't like a lot of your matchups. I don't like Joe Burrow against Baltimore. Like I said, I don't like James Conner against San Francisco. Um, New England, they gave up some points to San Francisco, so maybe it could work. But like you said, your Dolphins, you're not quite sure what's going on right there right now. And the Kansas City Chiefs have a good defense this year, so
Yeah,
it'll be it'll be
we're gonna have to
interesting.
make some moves.
Make some moves. All right. All right, we got a couple more left. We have what I think is an important division matchup because they're both 1-3. They're in the bottom half of the West Division with EJ and Tyler. So that's why I think this actually is an important matchup because one of them is going to go 1-4 at this point and be still at the bottom of the division, while the other could potentially get either stay in that middle area or maybe even hop to the top half of the division with a win. Um, you got the projection on EJ's side, but that's just because Tyler does not have Hopkins is there. He's obviously on bye. Chargers are on bye, so he's got to get a new flex option, a new defense. So then it'll be much closer at that point. Anything that you would notate about this matchup or that you like or dislike?
No, I mean I like the adjustments already EJ put in there, right? Xavier Worthy should hopefully be getting more touches for Kansas City. Like Jordan Addison, he's just going with it. Like I know that projection's low because the Jets defense is good, but I mean nobody had the Vikings doing this well up to this point anyways. So
Yeah,
um I mean I think the core of that on EJ's side is pretty good, and you hope for, Patrick Mahomes. It's crazy that the Saints are 16. I mean, position ranked 16 because they started the first two games off like incredibly hot on defense. So we'll see if they kind of come back into form. But We're getting into the week where there's a lot of like really tough
Well, no,
matchups.
so that's position rank for Mahomes. Mahomes is the 16th best
Oh, I
quarterback.
thought that was going against the. Oh,
No.
oh, okay. But yeah, I mean, New Orleans has been like a pretty stout defense overall. So,
Yep.
but then you got like CJ Stroud going against Buffalo, and up until last week, Buffalo's been a pretty good defense. So, a couple like big matchups for their guys. So it's basically just which one of the top guys can perform the best.
Yeah, agreed. I do think that you just got a lot of tough matchups. Like you said, New Orleans is a tough matchup. Dallas gives up like stuff on the ground. They didn't do it as much against the Giants. But then Worthy and Mahomes going against New Orleans, Addison going against the Jets. Denver's a better defense. People give them credit for. Brock Bowers going against them. Chicago's a really tough defense, especially in Chicago this weekend for Chuba Hubbard. So there's actually a lot of defense I don't like there. But even on the other side, Minnesota's been a tough defense. Buffalo got whooped up on by Baltimore, but Houston isn't Baltimore in that sense of how they run their offense. So Buffalo's still a tough defense. Moss going against the Ravens. Ravens are like the number one defense in the NFL. I think they're a tough one to go to. I don't like Freiermuth against Dallas. The only one I like is Amari Cooper against Washington. That's the only one that's like a decently good matchup for him. And who knows the hell is going to happen because Deshaun Watson is quarterback. So a lot of
Stephon
tough
Diggs revenge
matchups. It might
game.
be a low scoring game for both of these teams.
Stephon Diggs revenge game.
There you go. Hey, I like that narrative. I
Maybe
do
goes off for
actually.
maybe goes off for 30 after Josh Allen and the comments that he made. So
Well, there you go. Tank Dell's back, but maybe he's just going to be back for a little decoy action and not get as much run too. So Diggs has
yeah,
played well. Diggs has been much better than I thought he would be so
yeah.
far.
Well, it's
I'll just
funny
say
too
that.
because they were saying like initial reports is like he's a big leader in the room and stuff like that, and then Josh Allen goes out after their first 3 weeks and he's just like, yeah, a bunch of guys like not chasing stats, just trying to win games, and it's kind of like conflicting reports from each side of
Here's
you know,
here's what I'll say. Stephon Diggs, this it wouldn't surprise me if he does this and then 3 weeks from now he's all of a sudden shit and he's not going well because that's what's happened the previous 2 years in a
yeah.
row. So we'll see how it goes, um, but it seems like it's going well so far. So Tyler's got to keep riding that connection of Stroud and Diggs, man.
Oh yeah.
So all right, last matchup to go through another, I think, big time matchup in the West, man. You got 2 versus 3 in the West, the Wild West. But why I'm throwing this out there is Wild is that if you actually look at Bob's team, if you want to go ahead and take a look, there is he has one person on his bench that is not on bye. One. Everyone else is on bye. He has to hope, and that one person is the backup to his current tight end. So either way, he basically just has the tight. He has Brenton Strange and Evan Ingram. So if Evan Ingram doesn't play, okay, he's got him covered. But if Joe Mixon doesn't play, he doesn't have him covered currently. So he wouldn't have a full roster. So that's what I was trying to say. Like Bob, I think even said at one point, he's like, man, everybody's got this week. But the good part, Bob, is you'll be through the buys. Like
Yeah,
you won't
it'll be
have to
fine.
really worry about it too much. On Casey's side, he's gonna have to find a backup for his tight end. You didn't mention it, but like any news on Hawkinson, if he's coming back at any point?
He's supposed to be coming back
Okay.
at some point
Because I
soon.
know that he'd have to come out, he's on IR. So I think
I
he'd have to
think.
come off because the 4 weeks would have, so I don't know if it's like you just open the practice window kind of deal.
Yeah,
Because
I
that's
remember reading something about him, and I can't remember what it was.
yeah.
Oh, TJ Hawkinson. Data plus comments suggest week 7 to 9. Tight end ramp average ramp up 3 games, so probably not yet.
Okay. But I think they'll open his practice window. It's a 21-day window, and that gets you to
Yeah,
that exact range right there.
yeah,
Because I think that's how that works, right? On IR is you get because that's what they did to
yeah,
Chubb. Is they're going to do that to Chubb potentially, which is open up his practice window.
yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But interesting that Bob just has no other options. He has to roll with this. What I will say is it's a good week to throw Trevor Lawrence out there because the Colts, defense isn't the best, especially against the pass. So a good week to throw him out there. We'll see what DK against the Giants. That's a good matchup to me, it
Yeah.
seems. Mooney against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's pass defense is not very good, so that could be a good one as well. So we'll see how this goes. Josh Downs against Jacksonville. Jacksonville fucking sucks. So like that could be good. So Bob might get lucky here in the matchups he at least has with the players he has to play
Yeah.
at this current rate. But all right, good luck to everybody in week 5. Sam, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and helping me out this week. You gave some good insights as Sam, and then your alter ego of Dr. Sam. So
Yeah.
we always appreciate the help there. And if you ever want to throw out some more injury help on the text chain, just feel free. Just feel free to give people an edge that you would rather have yourself. Just share. It's called
Yeah, if I do that, it's
sharing.
gonna be all smoke and mirrors. I'm gonna start using that. I'm gonna use my powers for evil and not for good. So
I like that idea too. But again, I appreciate you, man. Well, I'm gonna get out of this. Stop the screen share. I don't want to share anymore. Speaking of sharing, I don't want to share anymore.
yeah, we need
But
to
much
update
love
the
to you.
picture. We need to
Huh?
update the picture of me.
You want me to update it?
Dr. Sam picture, like my
Yeah.
nose crooked. We gotta get a different one. Not a good look.
I think it's just the funniest. It's so good. But if you want a new picture,
Got my gaming headphones on.
you do.
Just yeah,
Is that what those were in that? That was like the
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so funny.
Surround sound. They're perfect.
But you can put them into your computer? Are they just like regular standard audio?
Oh yeah,
Plug?
there's like a cord, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you want a new like picture, have you done professional shots?
No.
Hold on. How do you not have professional headshots as Dr. Sam?
I got one from a wedding of like me against a brick wall. But
In scrubs?
no, just like a suit. I don't wear scrubs. Old ladies like the tight pants. They don't like the scrubs.
Do you wear a polo and the tight pants? Is that what you wear?
Yeah, that's it. And old ladies, you walk by them, they're like, "Oh, if I was any younger." Like, yeah, okay, thank you.
And you said if I was a lot older, then that's what you got to say back to them.
I just kind of like, okay, thank you. Thanks for the
Yeah.
ego boost for the day. We'll see you later.
I'm gonna hit the gym. I think it's that way.
Yeah. Can you
Kind of
tell me where
deal.
room 204 is? Is it over there?
Is this the assisted living homes that you're going to?
Yeah. Yeah, straight up. This will be my last story. Straight up, I had to take an action photo for like the assisted living's actual like web page. They wanted like a photo of us in action. And this one lady who I know, but I never worked with, they were like, "Oh, will you take a picture with Sam?" And this lady straight up was walking with her walker and just like threw her walker to this, like pushed her walker to the side to come to me to give me a hug to take a photo. And I was like, we're gonna take an action photo, and also please don't ever throw your walker again because if you fall, I'm gonna freak out. And she just straight up was like, "Oh yeah," and like walked up, pushed her walker, and came and gave me a hug. And I'm like, "Okay, let's get this walker back. We're gonna take an action photo here of you walking. I'm gonna pretend to do something."
Well, I
So
thought that's part of like it's magic. Like that's how good you are. Is that I don't even need a walker anymore.
yeah,
That's
she,
how that's supposed to be the action shot. Is we are
yeah,
so good at
yeah.
physical therapy. You won't even need the tennis balls anymore, ladies. You don't need the tennis balls under there.
I'm gonna I'm gonna refrain from any other ball comments, but yeah, well, the good the good ending point.
Yeah, we'll stop there. Speaking of balls, good luck this weekend in fantasy footballs for
Yeah.
week 5, everybody. Much love to you, Sam. Much love to the FFFL. Good luck in week 5, and we will see you on the flip side. All right, peace.